Hi, everyone.
Mike and William from the Foundry.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. This is the SEBA call for August 21st, which this only thing we have on the schedule today is the review of the JIRA items completed since the last review, which was 2 weeks ago. So let's get started.
Call for agenda.
So is there anything else people would like on the agenda? Let me share the screen. So we have this agenda document. This is linked to in the calendar. If you need to add something to it, please do. It should be on the OpenCord calendar, and anyone should be able to add. Once they get this link, should be able to add things to this agenda. Right now, the only thing we have is this review of SEBA or JIRA items. Anything else people would like to discuss other than that?
Yeah, sure. I would like to know something more about the SEBA pods. If somebody can brief, a small brief.
About the pods or the?
SEBA pods, there is some item called SEBA pod integration, and I just wanted to know a little information as what can we do for that.
Oh, so, are you looking for an opportunity to get involved with the project, or?
That's correct. I'm from Dell, and
okay.
My asked me to find out about SEBA pod integration. What is the role we can play?
Yeah. So during the when we were in JIRA, there are a few items that that are not assigned to anyone at this point that you could try jumping on those. We can look at that when we're going through this. If you need other general help, most of the time there's the OpenCord Slack and or on the mailing list. Those are probably the two best ways to get engaged or to start getting engaged in the project.
Is there a specific Slack group for SEBA pod integration or SEBA pods specific?
What do you mean by integration of it? Just to understand, what information are you specifically looking for?
So there is hardware component, there is software component, there is integration.
Right. So so for that, all the basic informations are on the guide. If Zach is connected, he can paste it probably in the chat of the meeting. You can go, guide.opencore.org.
Yeah, this I have reviewed, but how does it tie to the current setup? And how, that's something I'm not clear on.
It's very similar to the current setup. It's just that a different workflow is being implemented. This one's for AT&T. So what you see on the guide is what was released in Cord 6.0. Since then, we have implemented a new workflow. And so some of the applications, some of those things, those aren't documented yet anywhere.
So maybe I can start with helping in documentation so that will help us understand.
I think it won't be wise to document it right now because things are moving pretty fast.
Okay.
I think in the past calls you had said that you were interested in working with Jason to work on Redfish implementations. Even before that, you had said you were interested in
for that I had contribution. I have added my comments. The first one, second one I could not connect with Jason, and that I will do it because we have Redfish API as far as discussion. We want to see what that I'll discuss with Jason on that. I'm waiting on that. Yes, sure. And third one, this is for my other team members to participate. So I can.
So I think the best thing for you to do would be to get started with this guide, right?
Correct.
There is an equipment list. There is all the software that you can download, and you should be able to bring up what in this guide refers to as RCORD, right? So
yes.
if you are able
So
to bring up.
Yeah, I did download the container version and I was attempting. I have reached certain stage. There are some issues. I'm trying to sort them out.
Yeah, you can ask the issues on the mailing list or on Slack, but you should be able to get started with all the software that we use: Kubernetes, ONOS, Volta, NEM, and the guide is fairly detailed. So
Yes,
you
it
should be
is.
able to come up to speed with CORD 6.0. And once you're at that point, then we can help you to move to master, where we have the new workflow implemented. So
this is Luca from ONF. So we started a conversation like 2 or 3 weeks ago. I told you I can provide as much support as you guys need to bring up the pod. I'm not sure it was you, but for sure it was someone from Dell. Sorry if now I can't remember the name.
Was it Tim?
I can look for it anyway. We can take it offline.
So one quick question: is it offline we install our own, or are we participating in what is being installed? There are two aspects of it. Which one we are talking here? We can install on our own in our own place. Is that what you need, or do we need to participate in this?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
So if you want me to install a SEBA pod, I can install in my Dell lab. Is that what you want, or you want me to participate in what is being installed and being accessed here in this call?
It's not well.
You can do it in your own lab. I mean, to get started.
But does that help?
Yeah, it's not what we want. It's more what you are looking to accomplish, right?
Correct. If you want me to contribute, then we have to be able to participate in what you are doing. That's my say. I can install any number of SEBA pods in my lab, but that doesn't help me, right, to participate.
Well, I guess that's probably the first step.
Integration.
Right. That's the first step to get a better overview of CORD, and from there we can take it on and move forward and apply the AT&T workflow if you wish. And once you understand the system from the user perspective, then we can talk better about development and the task to take on together, right?
And also, some things are independent of the workflow, right? So if you bring up CORD 6.0, but you want to contribute the Redfish APIs and integration of Redfish with NEM, that's independent of what workflow is being implemented, right? So you can put that by filling up what already comes.
So the ask from my companies, they are asking me, what do we give hardware? Do they need any hardware? So what's my answer to that? Do you need hardware this year?
So
what kind of hardware are we talking, right?
Like you have computes, right? So you have 3 computes. Do you need more computes? Do you have need for
more? In a pod, we don't need more computes. And but as you can see, I mean, on our guide, we have an equipment list that is certified for working with CORD or with SEBA. So if you want to be listed in this, for example, under the compute machines, today we use Quanta servers, right? So if Dell is to be listed over here, I mean, you can do the work and we'll be happy to include Dell servers on this list, and maybe you can point out that you get Redfish integration with Dell servers as well, right? So that's an added thing or something. So it's not like we need it right now.
Where does it begin? Do we install it in our place and test everything and then bring, or do we install in the whatever Coloc or wherever you have, and then start with that? How do we?
So we encourage doing it in your lab because we have a location in Menlo Park in the ONF offices, but we also have several other locations in our partner labs, like Quanta and Flextronics and others. So we encourage that you create a pod in your lab that you have access to, and eventually down the road that we can have access to.
Okay.
So
that
I
helps.
think
That helps.
Yeah.
So you are saying that you do your own setup first and then bring up, then we can work together. Okay.
Yeah. And one of the things for the Redfish API specifically, as that's probably going to be related to monitoring and pod lifecycle, knowing having a software basis for that information to go into. For example, if we're working more on the logging and monitoring aspects of things, being able to, once you have the base Kubernetes and other software, then it would be a process of writing something that takes the data from Redfish and gets it into NEM and then upstream into the OSS BSS system. So having NEM there and ready to accept data would be a good starting point.
So, okay, that's precisely I was asking. Do you have an NEM pod available right now, or is it all in one at the same SEBA pod?
Yeah, so it would be probably within the same SEBA pod. So getting the RCord as described on the guide would be a good starting point to get to.
Sure. Okay.
As a note, in the guide, there is also a basic documentation of the AT&T workflow.
Yeah, the workflow.
Yeah.
Oh.
AT&T, okay, workflow. Yeah, we are looking at AT&T workflow there.
It's not extending on the GUI is like what components you need to bring up to replicate from.
Yeah, I did attempt Helm, and that is where I was having some issues. I'll get back on that.
Yeah, if you are facing an issue, just write on the mailing list. The community is pretty active there, and we'll be happy to get back to you as soon as possible.
Yeah, which of these Slack is it open or is it something specific to RCord? Yeah.
Yeah, it is. If you go to the OpenCord tools section, there's a join us on Slack that you can request an invite, and it'll be sent to you, and then you can sign up.
Okay, I'll do that. For NEM, there is one. No, or just go by SEBA.
There's a SEBA channel in Slack that is where discussion is happening.
That should.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions or requests for getting on the agenda?
Well, I had some questions about the AT&T workflow. There was just some email exchange that I'd sent to Saurav, and I think it was just sent to SEBA in general as well. And Mike and Sean Ying had responded to that, and now I'm a little confused about the structure of the SEBA pod.
Go ahead, Sean. I think with the email chain that you're referring to, there was a question if AT&T's OSS is going to, how is it going to talk to the SEBA pod? And I had said that the OSS would talk directly to the abstract OLT container that's going to be in the SEBA pod, right? Which Mike had said that, well, no, the OSS is going to talk to OSAM, and OSAM will talk to the pod, which is true, which is the long-term story when SEBA becomes a reality. I'm sorry, when OSAM becomes a reality.
Yeah. So there's also there's a couple of questions around this as well. So I mean, in the workflow details, right? There's talk of I go and create an abstract OLT within NEM, right? But then earlier there's discussion of the abstract OLT is actually a separate container, and that's the interface that the external management talks to. Is the abstract OLT a separate container that's in there, or is it just someone's talking to NEM manipulating the abstract OLT record in NEM?
Right now it's being designed as a separate container, right? So in the northbound it talks to whatever, whether it's awesome or whether it's the external OSS. And on the southbound it actually calls the NEM's API. So
right, but
the way to think about abstract OLT is that it is a representation of the pod hardware in the pod as a traditional chassis-based OLT. And so SEBA doesn't necessarily, in every workflow, use the abstract OLT, right? In AT&T case, it'll use it. In some other operator wants to use it, it'll use it. But if some other operator does not care for the abstract OLT, then it won't use it. And so,
sure, but if you look at the workflow details, right, where it says OLT bring up, it says the operator creates an abstract OLT record in NEM, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's just the wording, really. It's creating that abstract OLT record in the abstract OLT. Right? And the abstract OLT is translating to whatever NEM needs.
If it's helpful to think of it this way, that AT&T container is a part of NEM. It's just the translation for one particular northbound use. I mean, NEM is a set of containers already. So this is just, you can think of it as one of them.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I was thinking of something that was external to NEM, but I guess if it's part of NEM, okay.
Yeah, NEM broadly defined will include as many northbound interfaces as it needs. Maybe only one gets configured in any given deployment, but in aggregate, you can think of them as all part of NEM.
So that we have, I mean, there's supposedly a set of APIs defined for northbound of NEM, right? So do those APIs only apply in the case of, some EMS, or does those northbound APIs apply from the abstract OLT to OSAM local? I mean, is that a separate interface to OSAM local through the abstract OLT, I guess, versus the standard set of APIs northbound on that?
Yeah, I think that's an OSAM question that one could morph the AT&T workflow container into OSAM local, but that would be an evolution there.
Yeah, I thought OSAM was above NEM.
OSAM is, but there's a local agent, which I think it's still TBD as to whether the workflow container. I mean, right now there's no OSAM there, so we're a little.
The interface. Sorry, this is Mike Gesser. I'm sorry I got on late. I did send this reply on the discuss group, but it is not our intention that the OSS is going to directly come into SEBA. The OSS is going to come through OSAM, and it's going to possibly come through OSAM at multiple labels. I mean, the OSS interface is going to interface into OSAM core, which would be at a network level, as opposed to an edge level. And then OSAM core will have some interaction either with a local OSAM agent or with maybe OSAM core talks to SEBA directly. But it is not intended that the OSS is gonna dial directly into SEBA. OSAM will be in the middle for AT&T.
So the OSS calls OSAM or invokes a workflow over OSAM, and OSAM then integrates into NEM or calls NEM interfaces to integrate into SEBA. Would you say that's accurate?
I mean, yes, to the extent that yes, I would agree with that, and we do believe, or I do believe, that there are some pieces of OSAM that will be inside the pod. So whether central OSAM talks to pieces of OSAM that are resident in the pod, or whether it talks directly to NEM, talking directly to SEBA. I mean, we don't have that whole flow worked through yet, right? So for our first September release, OSAM isn't there. So we're presenting a northbound interface, I guess, through the AT&T container, I guess is what I just heard somebody calling it. But that eventually will be integrated into some level of local OSAM or central OSAM will talk to that layer, but it won't be OSS directly.
Okay, so when there's an OSAM local agent, it really goes OSS, OSAM, core or central, OSAM local, then NEM. And right now, that OSAM local is just an AT&T container. There's a placeholder essentially.
So
I would like to think, and when I was thinking of it, I would like to think that the abstraction of the OLT into a model that maps ports to uplinks, I was hoping that would be more usable to other people in use cases. So I don't know that that's necessarily is necessarily a piece of OSAM. I would like to think that would be usable by others as part of NEM. If nobody in the world says we'll ever use that, then it just becomes our own AT&T's flavor of how to do stuff. I guess I'm fine with that too. But the idea of abstracting PON ports into uplinks and having them be managed externally, I was hoping that would be a little bit more generic, so that I'm not sure where the line is. I'm not sure where all of the individual finite lines are of where something becomes OSAM local versus NEM versus. I don't know where all those lines are drawn.
No, I think those lines will have to be drawn at a later point. And so right now, this what we're calling the AT&T workflow maybe is an unfair labeling, but it's the dominant understanding we have, and what goes in there will likely one day be refactored in a way that which is common to multiple carriers will drift down, and that which is specific to AT&T might become the AT&T, might become the OSAM agent, the local agent. But that's all. I mean, at the moment, there is a place that we're trying to collect an abstract definition. It's called the AT&T workflow, for perhaps a lack of imagination.
Follow up on that. And to follow up on that, Larry, this is just a clarification. This is Troy speaking. From where we are now, and I think both what Michael said and what you said is figuring out where that, but the intent, and this is a question to somebody who could represent NEM, the intent is to house a single model for what's inside of the SEBA pod, as opposed to the abstracted model that needs to be presented or decoded or refactored into what the actual model in the SEBA is from OSS. Is that part of NEM's function?
Yes.
Or is that ultimately going to be,
well,
so you'd have...
Well said, that's exactly right.
Okay.
So are we in a similar line?
Go ahead.
Are we in similar line with the modeling for the VES, VNF event streaming that goes into the collection database in AT&T other ONAP, something like that, where you do the telemetry based on the network edge mediation NEM? Is it something that you collect and then you do, or you just directly do the real-time event response? Event alerts and responses.
NEM has two, you can think of NEM as having a couple of two halves, and you can split it in different ways, but one way you can split it is the modeled state and the monitoring collected state, and there needs to be relationships between them, but in real time you're collecting monitoring state, and then part of the workflows, perhaps based upon what you've collected, will make changes to the models.
And there's both like real-time collection of that data and also periodic polling and alerting based on that, usually determined by the carrier or whoever's running the system will probably be the one setting the alert thresholds and those sorts of things. So for the specific question, I think that we need the option of that being configurable. Does that answer the question?
Sure, does that. It does that.
Are there any other comments on this issue? I'm sure that people will have more, and we can take it to the listserv if needed.
So one more question. Just where is that in the? We had previously some telemetry in the what you call OpenStack, which was being integrated into ONOS? Is that not usable here?
Here.
Yeah, there's no OpenStack in the current SEBA model. But it may be that the connectors or other things could be reused if they're not OpenStack specific.
I see.
And hey, this is Troy again. I just wanted to ask this follow-up clarification question. I know we're in the interim with the AT&T workflows of trying to figure out where things go with local, global, OSAM down into NEM. But the intent, as I understand it, and I'd like clarification, is that the NEM mediation and what I'd argue is also marshaling for multiple abstractions. Say we're dealing with the XGS PON now, so we've got it quote an abstract OLT, but we may have an abstract DPU, we may have an abstract GPON, we may have an abstract, insert your access node composition. But the NEM layer should marshal and mediate all of those internal models to a single. When I hear we got an abstract OLT container, that worries me if we have to turn up a container for every access node we type to abstract it, or NEM is planning on dealing with marshaling and mediating the entire abstraction so we don't have 14 ways into the SEBA through different abstracted OLT.
Yeah, so the models are all, the modeling aspect are all part of the core of NEM, and they're all in their models are layered on each other, they're related to each other, and all the interactions between the models would be part of a logically centralized mediation layer. That you might take different actions on the model based on different quote unquote workflows. That would be the way that I think of what's captured in the container, that you needed some translation code there on behalf of one particular use case.
I absolutely agree with that. What I wanted to make sure was I didn't want to give the representation that the intent is to have multiple interfaces for whether it's local or global OSAM or your northbound OSS to have to figure out which quote container to speak to. You should speak to the front door of NEM, and then based on what the request from OSS, determine which, from that marshaling, which abstraction you're trying to communicate, whether it's DPU, whether it's GPON, XGS PON, et cetera. And we're not going to necessarily continue with the nomenclature we've got as a abstract OLT container that talks to OSS. Something is going to marshal that when you get more than one. You still need the container. It's just out with them somewhere in there.
That's a decision that every operator should make independently, right? NEM, as it is, would work standalone with OLTs, with DPUs, with what have you, right? How you want that represented to your external system is a decision that every operator should make, right? Right now,
I absolutely agree with that. But all I wanted to make sure was, if you want to, it's the decoding part. If we're going to have the abstract sits in OSAM for AT&T, or if it's going to be part of NEM. That's why I asked the question, if NEM has an obligation to house the model for what's actually built in SEBA with all the access nodes that are there, as well as the abstracted model that it needs to decode between.
So I think you've stated a requirement, and that's the intent, and we just need to not lose track of that requirement. Because this is a point that different people could go in different directions. So stating that as a requirement is a very good thing to do.
I'm not sure what you said, Larry.
Well, I'm just making the point that what you just stated was a requirement on NEM. It could be interpreted that way. And while there may be, I just want to not lose that requirement.
But yeah, I mean, it obviously has an obligation to maintain its models that are consistent with what is actually deployed. The question is, does an obligation to have the abstracted model within its own logic? Or somebody's going to have to decode it so NEM knows what the heck to do.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Yes.
And I do agree with what Saurabh said. That could maybe be an implementation based on the provider who's implementing it. But it seems like I just don't want to have multiple entries into SEBA for provisioning if SEBA does that function. I don't know that I have a good answer for it. I know the way we're approaching from AT&T, but not generalized.
So is your argument that, let's say, a new OLT piece of hardware comes along and it has 17 ports instead of 16, and it's the argument that the abstract OLT then, you'd rather than us making a brand new abstract OLT, we'd have to figure out some way to integrate it into and translate between the hardware model and the upstream OSS system, and that would be incorporated in the abstract OLT, and it wouldn't require that we make a new one. We just upgrade to something that supports that new configuration. Is that what you're trying?
I think you could. I think in either way you do, you can support either create another abstract one that creates the deltas, or make a new one, or leave the old one with the new additional container. Somebody still has an obligation. The OSS is going to say, I'm expecting to talk to something that looks like this. I'm just asking who does that arbitrage. Whether that's in OSAM or OSS, that's got an arbitrage and give a semaphore going, I'm expecting to talk to a 17-port XYZ access node, or is it just, from AT&T's perspective, we're kind of assuming our legacy OSS is going to be fixed. It's never going to change. It's always going to ask for something until we get rid of the legacy. For consistent, somebody's just got to decode it with the addition of new access nodes or new compositions of that same access node technology.
That's my understanding of what the abstract OLT is supposed to do, and if that becomes part of OSAM or how we decide to slice it up changes, I think, but that's the right place for it to be. Is that what the group's understanding is?
That's my question. I mean,
yes.
Yes. I guess
our understanding.
That's our understanding. I think is that if that's going to work for everyone.
And then to just add to that is if we've got another access node technology.
If you would maybe in that case, the process for onboarding that would be NEM defines models for that new access topology, and then we extend the abstract OLT, or we write an abstract whatever access technology container that does that. And then I guess we'd have to, at that point, figure out how that would interact with the upstream OSS.
Oh, and that's kind of, in all frankness, that's where we're at with AT&T. Is I personally don't know the right answer. We're going through this in an active way, and hopefully it becomes apparent when we get the second, third, or fourth rendition, and we haven't painted ourselves into a corner.
The intention is the interaction between the OSS and OSAM will not really be that much different than the interaction between OSAM and NEM. I mean, the intention is that you pass in a name, a slot, a port, an ONT number. You pass in an SVID and a CVID and some authentication information. What do authentication strings like? Basically, that just gets passed down. So the intention is that you're naming things by name, slot, port, ONT number, SVIDs, CVIDs, and that's the intention of how the information is getting communicated. So, as long as it's fitting into that paradigm of technology where I have a name, slot, port, ONT number, SVID, whatever, then that would be the upstream interface of, I want to put service of 100 meg on this type of structure. So that
I think I'm trying to figure out what that model is localized to, because there's a physical model SEBA will have, which is what you actually put in. Right. Then there's the abstracted locality of that. The OSS is going to send that bound. Who's making the local transition?
So both of those models.
Are we starting to layer abstractions, all of which are trying to abstract away the hardware of the access edge?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Volt is meant to abstract the access edge technology, and now we've got NEM, which is supposed to abstract the access edge technology. So we've got a layer of abstraction that's really trying to do the same thing as another layer of abstraction. That's a little concerning.
On the nose, whoever just said that, that's where I'm driving to. Where do we want to solve that problem? I'm cool anywhere, but I'd like us all to be on the page that we intend to solve.
The problem is that you're moving to a dynamic model where things can just move all around under the covers, and you can get different ONT IDs, and you can get different things, and I'm just on a logical port on a logical device that doesn't have you're having a very, very dynamic model that doesn't necessarily map into, an OSS that doesn't have a very, very dynamic model. When you can move to a dynamic ordering system, when you can move to just letting everything be dynamic and letting SBIDs and CBIDs just kind of be determined inside the pod and all of itself, and when you move to a different model, you can let all that stuff just magically fly by its own. But when you have something that's more rigid as a legacy OSS, you got to just lay out an abstract model that makes sense. And we've tried to lay out a very high level model that we think we can provision services of many different types with. So I mean that's why there's another level of abstraction.
And I think there's this balance we're trying to I don't know, strike, versus how do we support kind of the existing models within an organization, and how do we push forward to kind of the next generation of Access Edge, where the next generation of Access Edge, in my opinion, would be that kind of very dynamic model where the OSS doesn't care about all the low-level settings, right? It just says, I have a logical device port, let the other abstraction deal with everything else. But with kind of the NEM and the SEBA stuff, we're trying to say, but how do we support a legacy OSS system? And the longer we try to support, and I know this is an organizational issue, the longer we try to support that legacy system, the harder it is to get to the other system. And I don't want to see us start crippling kind of the future vision because we have to support this legacy system. And
I don't see how adding a second level of abstraction is crippling anything. AT&T is going to be in this mode of operation for a long time. So if you want to say that it's all on AT&T, and AT&T is the only one that really cares about having this more legacy look at I have ports and I have uplinks and they tie together in a way that I understand outside of what's going on in SEBA, that's okay. I mean we can just make it the AT&T app or whatever, and we can do it all ourselves. But I think that there is some value in being able to tie to an external BNG solution, which is what we're trying to do here. I think that's more global than just AT&T wants to do that. And I think that when you tie to an external type of system, you have PON ports and you have uplinks, and they have to get mapped together somehow. And we've presented a simple way of mapping them together. I don't think that that's holding anything back in what's trying to go on here. I don't know.
And it's not. I don't think anybody's arguing that we don't need that functionality. Where I'm at is just for argument's sake, say we did all of that abstraction mapping in OSAM, either global or local, you just did it there. NEM doesn't need to do it again. Or you could do it all in NEM, and then you don't have to do it somewhere else. You still get exactly the functionality of legacy requirement as well as new capability. It's just, you don't have to do it twice if you don't want to.
Well, but if we keep OSAM as the intention was to try to keep OSAM at a higher level, so that OSAM doesn't have to know all of ONF's business in terms of where are logical ports, where are things, where are all the dynamic nature of everything that's going on. I mean, you don't want to have to make OSAM understand everything that's going on in the pod to make that mapping. So the intention, my idea is that the place that knows how it's doing all of that dynamic mapping is the best place in order to do that translation. Now, whether that becomes an external added on AT&T piece to I mean, I think the pod knows all that dynamic information. You don't want to make OSAM up at a much higher level try to learn all of that dynamic information.
I mean, in all honesty, Michael, that's where my head's at. Is NEM seems like, and again, we're early on in it, just seems like a common sense kind of place to do the model mapping, and there's no need to do it anywhere else. I mean, it can support multiple model mappings, but you don't have it all over Hell's Half Acre. You know where it's at.
So folks, there is another call, the OSAM call that happens on Wednesdays. It might be a good place to take up this issue over there. It's a much more OSAM focused.
Agreed.
These issues are already being discussed. Sorry.
I was just going to make the point that we can treat this as a feature, not a bug. That the fact that AT&T needs it both ways is just representative of the fact that there will be many workflows, and that's what we're trying to accommodate. And we're trying to define a rendezvous point that is both local and close to the action, and can be configured/modeled to support multiple of those. And the fact that AT&T has more than one just is helpful. It's a feature.
So Zach, do we have enough time to go through what we wanted to go through today in the Jira items?
The transition.
I think that we can probably get started at least. We have a bunch of things that were completed. The last time this went pretty quick, so I don't think I think we can probably fit it in.
Go ahead.
I'll get started. So we had 29 things completed since the 7th, which was our last meeting. Do we want to go? Is Charles there? Or Saurav, can you speak to 71?
Yeah, Charles is here. So that's okay. I mean, I can take this. Basically, we have different workflows doing different things in the aggregation switches. So in one case, we are just forwarding Ethernet frames. In another case, we are popping off the tags and routing the packets out. So we needed a way to choose between these, and so we have that, and that was completed. So depending on the workflow, NEM instructs the AG switch to do one or the other, and that was done.
Okay, thanks. Jono, you have a few items?
Yeah, the status gateway is a small container that basically adapts the API that status is expecting to what XOS provides. So ONOS is now pulling subscriber information from XOS through this gateway container. The next one is we switched from using the prepackaged Volta ONOS image to using generic ONOS and installing the app via XOS through the, we configure XOS with the JavaScript configuration of the ONOS config and the app config, and we install them on the generic ONOS image. And then SEBA 1626, that was actually solved by Amit rather than me. Instead of having this configuration of one S tag per OLT, we're now pulling an S tag per subscriber through the status interface.
So that was Amit Ghosh from Reddit. Right. Yeah.
Is Kailash there?
Yeah, I can take that.
Okay.
So this one is already implemented, so we can. This is regarding optimizing the Jenkins script that we have currently, and then earlier we put some sleep timers there, but then we optimized the script to include the wait time for the pod, so that's been taken care of.
Can you talk? You inserted sleeps. That's just always a flag for me. This is waiting for machines to come up.
We removed sleeps, I think, and we changed it.
Yeah, we removed.
Yeah, we're checking that things are coming up fully in the API.
Oh, so you're just periodically checking and then continue when things are up. Okay, good. Thanks.
Yeah, we wait for the container status and then we continue with it.
Okay, thanks, Suchitra. Matteo?
Yeah, so 119 was to propagate the OLT port event when, well, actually the ticket is wrong. The ONU port event, the UNI port is seen in ONOS as an open flow port, and when it goes up or down, we're propagating the events in Kafka, so we can react in NEM. There was an issue in deleting the VOLT service instance that fixed, that basically represents a subscriber in the pod. SEBA 116. We moved. We renamed the EPSS in AT&T Workflow Driver. I'm really sad about that, and there are a bunch of tasks related to it. We added some information to the whitelist, such as location, so we can validate that NONU is coming up in the correct location. The ticket is called AT&T modeling, but it's really, it came from AT&T as a requirement, but I think it's a general purpose feature. Yeah, and the rest is a little bit of cleanup following the renaming. There is no point in going through all of them.
So on the 193, 193, yeah, that's the delete OT service instance. You deleted it from the name, right? So is the ONO still have the instance?
Yeah, that's just an internal naming in NEM. Basically doing the add subscriber call and removing the subscriber when we don't need it.
So this ticket only apply to the NEM, not anywhere else, right? Not owners.
No. It's a NEM only thing.
Okay.
So a question on 119. So the propagating of the port state. Does that cause the subscriber provisioning to occur when the uniport goes up the first time?
No, we wait for the authentication to go through to provision the subscriber.
There's a pretty good diagram here about what happens, and on the AT&T workflow section of the guide.
When the UNI port comes up, we are just provisioning the flows, the EAP flows to let the authentication request go through.
Oh, okay. So you provisioning the authentication flows. So would that use the S&C tag for the actual flow itself, the authentication flows, or is the authentication flow still making one up?
No, so the authentication flow is in the AT&T workflow is coming on like on a management VLAN or something, right? It doesn't have, it doesn't come on the S&C tag. Not yet. But you do need to know about the subscriber for the authentication to complete, because the 802.1x, the AAA app needs to include in the AT&T workflow things like NAS port ID and something else before sending it to the Radius server. So authentication, or if the subscriber hasn't been provisioned, but the CNS VLAN tags are not necessary for the authentication step. They are necessary for DHCP.
I think it would be, I guess, simpler in my mind anyway to require the S&C tags to be used for your authentication flow, because then you don't have to change the data path.
We would expect the DHCP request that's going to go up, not the 802.1x, not the 802.1x request on a port that's pulling up an ONT port, but the subscriber request that's coming up on a DHCP request. We would expect that to go up on a management VLAN, because you haven't the subscriber. Well, no, I'm sorry, not on the management, on the subscriber VLAN. We would expect the DHCP to go up on the subscriber VLAN, I would think.
It does do that. So yeah, I mean, you know, everything has to go out through the AG switch to the external BNG. Okay, so when it's trying to reach the DHCP server, it's using the subscriber tagging, and when it tries to reach the Radius server, it's using the management VLAN, the 4093 VLAN. Okay, so
that's what we say. The subscriber flow as defined as most recently defined by me, I think, would as you're saying, I want to provide service, you're saying I want to provide a technology profile, I want to provide a data rate, you would have the S&C tag and you would have the NAS ID and other, that would all come down in one subscriber message, provisioning message from Northbound. So you presumably would have all of that information to act on at the time in which the subscriber is provisioned.
Right, and I think if we were to use that, then we don't need to create some kind of dummy service for authentication. We could just use the real defined service for authentication, and then we don't need to go and mess around with any TCONs or gem ports or anything else at the ONU and the OLT level.
So, Sean, can we table that discussion?
Yeah, sure.
Discussion for another time, or maybe on the mailing list. We'd like to really go through what we had in mind. So, Zach, please.
Okay, I think that's end of Mateo's items. Matt had an question here. This was just a checking to see if LACP was required on the BNG upstream port, and it turned out to be. The next one is Saurav. This is an AT&T requirement, I think. Correct, Saurav?
Yeah, that's right. So yep. We had to, we were using Vlan 4093 in the Ag switch sort of internally for our own purposes, and turns out that AT&T needed it for the management Vlan, so I changed the default and in fact made it configurable. So depending on the workflow, we can change what our internal Vlan usage is. And the next one, we have another option in the Ag switch to match on both Vlan tags. Right now, we are only matching on the S Vlan tag and forwarding. That's good enough for what we are doing. Now, this is just a test for matching on both Vlan tags, and that's also possible. So that was done.
Okay, thanks, Saurav. Scott?
So this first one was a bug that we had the dependency reversed in the Tosca and I believe in some of the model policies between ONOS Fabric and the Fabric service. So that was just a matter of reversing the direction of that dependency. These next four items, SEBA 169 through 172, all go together. And these were augmenting the Kubernetes Synchronizer to send events when containers come up and down, and then for various services to watch for those events and then react. So most of those reactions involved pushing new state to ONOS. So the primary goal of these 4 stories was that if ONOS goes down, comes back up, we repush all relevant state to ONOS. And then SEBA 190, that was just a validation issue that popped up. We're doing a stricter validation now, and there was an issue that slice URLs couldn't be blank. So I think we fixed that in the data model. And then finally, we have this Fabric Cross Connect should be able to specify any S tag. So we have this BNG port mapping object in the Fabric Cross Connect service that takes S tags and maps them to switch ports for the BNG. This is allowing you, in addition to specifying a specific S tag, you could specify an S tag of any, and it would map any S tag to that BNG. You can also support ranges, so like 123 to 125 to map multiple S tags to the same port. That's it.
Thanks, Scott. Is William on?
Yes.
Could you comment on SEBA 13? Are you able to see this?
There it goes. The parse alarm event from Kafka.
Yeah, I've got that mostly working. I think I have a few details to resolve with Mike. I think I found one more thing I wanted to add to that, but we've mostly got alarms in that working now. Still have to get the
so
KPI.
looking at that, so Kafka's events, obviously that's kind of streaming events. DCAE is a REST API, which means establish TCP connection, push event, close TCP connection. Any thoughts about doing some bundling of events across that interface some way? So that we could, one could potentially keep up with the other?
I mean, that's possible. It's possible to batch them up instead of sending them one at a time. So that's not a major change. The API supports that. So I think we could do that if we found that the throughput was such that we would need to bundle them.
Okay. I'm just worried creating a TCP connection for each event.
Well, yeah, and so we could definitely do some bundling, like whenever we do a pull from Kafka. So usually what I find is when I pull from Kafka, I get one at a time so it doesn't really matter at the current rate. But right now, obviously, we're not getting as many as we could be getting. Depending how many alarms we expect to be sending up and down, like from a single SEBA pod, it may not be a big deal to bundle it.
Okay.
If we have some sense of the throughput, we can actually do some math and figure that out.
All right. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, William. The last two items are mine. One is just a bug issue. We had a test for Helm charts that was a lint test that was in two places and they weren't being synced. So I eliminated one and made it so that it can be locally tested. And SEBA 83 is persistent storage infrastructure. This is implementations of Ceph and local directories and local mounted disks and volumes into Kubernetes with Rook and a few other provisioner tools to let the SEBA pod have persistent storage. That's all the items that we've done. We're kind of out of time. We could go over what people are currently working on. Or do people feel like continuing, or should we table this for now and maybe reconvene some other time?
Possibly next week.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's hold off till next week. There are a few in progress items, and then we do have a few also that are unassigned that are looking for ownership. Okay, then I'm going to close the meeting now. Thank you all.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.